Hello everyone, this is Prince Sefa-Boakye. I am in the city of Boston, or East Boston, Massachusetts, sitting inside the Americano Espresso, right on Meridian Street. And today, actually, as you've been following me, that these are the elections for East Boston State Rep. And the man sitting next to me is no new face. I actually interviewed him for the primaries, but he actually won the primaries. And his name is Adrian Madaro. So first, let me congratulate you on the job well done.
Appreciate it.
And so, with a couple of days before the campaign, I invited him here to kind of just explain to him again, or explain to you guys again, why he's running for state rep and why you should be the next state rep. So, Adrian, let's go ahead and start off by introducing yourself and telling us why you're running for East Boston state rep again.
Certainly. Again, Adrian Madaro. An honor to be the Democratic nominee for state representative here in East Boston. The primary election took place on March 3rd. There was a great field of 5 candidates on the Democratic ticket, and I was fortunate enough to garner 42% of the vote in the 5-way primary, which was a very humbling experience, needless to say. Born and raised here in East Boston. My mom is a lifelong resident as well. My dad's an immigrant from Italy, so I'm a first-generation American. Went to Boston Latin School, Tufts University for undergrad, went back, got a master's in public policy and urban planning. Spent the past 4.5 years as former Representative Basil's chief of staff up at the State House, where I was able to do, first of all, learn the inner workings of state government, how to handle constituent services, how to deal with the budget, how to successfully navigate the legislative system there to pass bills, and was really able to do a lot of good work and help a lot of folks in this community, and which is why I'm running. I want to continue to help people, whether it's through good constituent services or through strong policies and initiatives up at the State House.
Great. So tell me, how's the campaign now? I mean, what's new?
Well, I'm the Democratic nominee, so that's a change from the last time we spoke.
Yes.
It was a real tough battle. We had to deal with not only a crowded field in a short timeline, but also navigating 10-foot snowbanks and 3 or 4 blizzards.
I see.
So that was interesting. But now, still pushing ahead.
Right.
Not being complacent, not taking anything for granted. I do have an opponent coming up a week from today on March 31st, an independent candidate, Joanne Pomodoro, who's a wonderful lady. Hi, Joanne. I got a lot of respect for her. She's a great lady, very committed to helping people. But, the day after the election, Prince, I was early morning. I was at Maverick Station greeting and thanking voters. Again, you can't take anything for granted, and I have not stopped working. I'm going to continue to work hard, knock doors, make phone calls, reach out to voters, share my vision, and I hope to earn the vote of the East Boston residents once again on March 31st. Awesome.
Well, do you have any new policies that you are promoting as state rep, or same as the last time?
Pretty much all my policies and initiatives were laid out in the primary. At this point, I'm just continuing to spread those policies, my vision, and again, I hope to get the endorsement of the folks of East Boston once again.
Great. So now I'm going to talk to you about some pressing issues here in East Boston, which I already talked about in my last interviews. One of them actually is gentrification of housing. How can you make sure that the middle class families won't get pushed out out of East Boston?
Mm-hmm.
That, and also too, in my interview with Joanne, she was talking about a voucher program, which actually will give discounts for people living here in East Boston, wants to stay here in East Boston, so they won't be pushed out. So if you could answer those two.
Sure, that's certainly a hot issue, and no matter where you are in the community, you hear the issue of development come up. Mm-hmm. From Eagle Hill to Jeffers Point to Orient Heights, it's certainly one of the hot button issues. The East Boston of today is not the East Boston of my childhood. When I was growing up in this community, crime was much higher. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of vacant lots, homes were falling apart, really decrepit. And people were leaving this community in droves. Today, it's a 180, and that's now one of the hottest real estate markets in the entire country, written about in national real estate magazines. Crime is much lower. We're the 2nd or 3rd safest neighborhood in the city. Every developable lot is being developed upon. Homes are being restored. The waterfront is being developed, and money is exchanging hands like I don't ever recall seeing in my lifetime. And that investment is certainly going to be good for East Boston and will result in improvements to our community and the infrastructure around us. However, it does bring up a grave concern for me, and that's what you touched on. And it's the fact that folks can be forcibly displaced from our community with the rising rents and the rising costs. East Boston could quickly, we're at a critical juncture, we could quickly become another case study of other communities in the city, whether it be Charlestown, the North End, South Boston, where those are just homogenous communities, where they don't have the diversity that they once had, and a lot of the longtime locals have been forcibly displaced. That would be awful if that happened to East Boston, because what makes East Boston special and authentic is the people. It's the diversity. You look around, you see the diversity reflected in the people. You see it reflected in the small businesses, and particularly in the restaurants where you have cuisines from all over the world. This is and always has been the immigrant town, the gateway neighborhood for the city of Boston. That's our identity. And if we don't get a handle on the development and ensure balanced, responsible, and thoughtful development, we're going to lose the people, and that's what makes the community special. So it's really about, on a state level, advocating for funds for places like the local community development corporations here, East Boston CDC, and the Neighborhood Affordable Housing NOAA, that build affordable housing, workforce housing, middle income housing, to make sure that whether you're a senior who was born and raised here and raised his or her family here, or whether you're a recent immigrant that's come here to be with your social network and support system, that you have the opportunity to stay here, raise a family, succeed, and thrive, because that's what this community always has been. And that's what we have to make sure it continues to be.
Awesome. Now, also, what are your thoughts on Joanne's voucher program? Do you think you could get something better than that as far as having people stay here? Or
certainly, the answer is with state funding for places like NOAA, for the CDCs. The voucher program is an antiquated idea that now we've shifted the way we look at ways to provide housing for all folks. And it's about having frank conversations with developers, many of whom are born and raised here in East Boston. Making sure that the developments are fitting the character of the neighborhood, and that the developments are being built in a way that keeps residents here who want to stay here. It's about advocating for funding at the state level, like I mentioned. It's also about making sure that there's a thing called the Inclusionary Development Fund. So, for example, the waterfront developments, they're required, any development of a certain size is required to have an affordability component. The developers have the option whether to keep the affordability on site or to pay for it off site into the inclusionary development program. Okay. If they do that and pay for it off site, it's incumbent upon the community and the elected representation to make sure that affordability component stays in the neighborhood, rather than, for example, them paying off site and that affordable housing being built in Chinatown or Charlestown. It should be built. It should stay here. If it was supposed to be in East Boston, it should stay here in East Boston, and that's something we need to work towards making sure that becomes a reality.
Awesome. Okay, great. Also, one thing that Joanne was talking about, making sure that they're not selling East Boston to developers for profit. What can you make sure that won't happen?
What do you mean?
Well, in my interview, I was asking her, and one of her issues is that selling East Boston to developers for profit. So they want to be sure that if they're going to develop East Boston, that they're not going to use it for profit. So
any developer getting in the business to develop is looking to make a profit. Right. And that's just the reality of development.
Right.
It's about making sure that any negatives are offset through mitigation. That the community is benefiting, so that if development's going on, for example, the waterfront, it's resulting in restaurants, bars, things that will create jobs and be economic engines for East Boston residents. If you were going to develop a building, would you want to develop it to lose money? I mean,
I'm not a person that it's your answer.
No, I'm just saying, this is, these are the market forces, right? And I think it's a wonderful thing that folks are coming in and wanting to invest in East Boston. We just need to make sure it's done in a responsible, thoughtful, balanced way that doesn't go on the backs of residents in our community, but that works for and with the residents of this community.
All right, thank you for answering that. All right, so now I'm going to get into some Twitter questions. So this one comes from John FPC, and he asked about the Pierce Park Phase 2. And if the state is ever going to finish, and ever going to finish, that's one. And two, what the state rep can do to move it along.
Certainly. When that was written into legislation, it was a very different economic time for the state. And the state had, the money was overflowing in the state coffers, and they had money where they thought they could have paid to complete Pierce Park Phase 2. That is not the economic climate of today. And so at this point, it's about finding innovative solutions as to how we can make that a reality. I think we have ample opportunity with the waterfront developments that are going on. There are some waterfront developments that actually have Pierce Park Phase 2 completed as a green open space in their marketing materials for their rental or condominium units.
Right.
So I think one interesting approach a state rep could do is to sit these waterfront developers down at a table and say, hey, having Pierce Park Phase 2 complete would not only help your marketability for your units, but it's also going to be a benefit to the community. And perhaps if we were able to find a way where the waterfront developers, through their community benefit agreement, can put some seed money into it, maybe work with the Port Authority to help get some money from them, and then maybe bring that to the state and say, hey, here's a pot of money, could you maybe meet the rest? Right now, the state's looking at 100% of the pie, and that's not going to fly. So we have to look at solutions to make it work. But that certainly is going to be a priority of mine because we deserve that as a community.
Wonderful. And my last bit of question is not actually for you, but it was actually for Joanne. And he asked to Joanne, as an activist and non-professional politician, what do you bring to the table as a candidate for political office? So I'm going to actually turn it around. So, as a professional politician, tell me, what do you bring to the table as a candidate for political office?
Well, first of all, I'm not a professional politician yet. Hopefully, that'll become a reality on the 31st.
Right.
I grew up in a family of activists, Prince. My mom's a longtime president of the Eagle Civic Association, and many folks in my family fought the tough battles against airport expansion, the environmental injustices and burdens that we face. I am an activist. At 11 years old, I was very proud, standing shoulder to shoulder with thousands of residents from East Boston, Chelsea, Winthrop, Revere, and other surrounding communities in front of the State House protesting the expansion of runway 1432. So growing up in that family, steeped in the ideals of civic community activism and civic engagement, that's who I am and what I grew up around. I certainly intend to be an activist rep, and I'm going to bring those qualities that were instilled in me as a youngster to the State House to make sure I fight for everyone in this community, not just the folks who have money, not just the folks, not just any one particular segment of the population, but everyone in East Boston. Because as a representative, your duty is to make sure you're not only taking care of the folks who are voting for you and who are donating to you, but also you have a duty to take care of the most underserved and underrepresented populations in your community. And that's something I would certainly take care of and make a priority, because to me, it's all about being accessible and being responsive, being reachable, and helping people.
Okay, great. Well, that's the end of my show. And so tell my audience, when do they need to vote?
March 31st, a week from tomorrow, and I humbly ask for your vote on the final so we can finish what we started on the 3rd. But we still do have an opponent. There's a debate tonight taking place at East Boston High School, 5:30 to 7:30. Folks are welcome to join. But again, it's an honor and a privilege to be the Democratic nominee, and I hope I'm fortunate enough to earn your vote again on March 31st.
Great. And where can my audience follow you?
I do have a website, www.adrianmadaro.com. I have a Facebook, Adrian Madaro, and a Twitter, @Adrian Madaro.
All right. Well, Adrian, thank you so much, and good luck to you, sir.
Take care. Right. See you back at law school.
Okay, awesome. Well, guys, thank you again for tuning in. For more people in politics, you can go to my website, princesdailyjournal.com. Until next time, be good and stay classy.
Take care.